While Donald Trump was skipping the second Republican presidential primary debate, he was in parallel to that doing or delivering a speech at a manufacturing plant in Detroit. Now, of course, in this moment, UAW workers are striking, and President Biden showed up, historic moment at the picket line, has a record that's pro-worker, pro-union, and also rhetorically and symbolically is showing up for workers in that moment. Donald Trump also wants to benefit politically, but he doesn't have that record to show for. And so, or to show for it. And so the union obviously doesn't want Trump to come speak for them, as Biden did, but he wants the appearance of being pro-worker, even though, again, he has a horrific record on workers' rights and that of unions. And so he just went to a manufacturing plant that wasn't a union plant and pretended like he was speaking to the union. It was so strange, so bizarre. And the first clip I have here for you gives away the whole game. He doesn't care about the rights or well-being of workers. He cares about this.
But we will stop him. Hopefully your leaders at United Auto Workers will endorse Donald Trump.
So he's speaking to workers who aren't led by Sean Fain, who Trump keeps calling on to endorse him. Hey, maybe do some good things for workers when you were president. Then it makes sense for them to endorse you. But as we talked about in a past segment you can find on the channel, Trump has an awful record, and his presidency has an awful record on these very issues that these workers care about. Again, this particular plant he was speaking at wasn't a union one, but he was acting as if and calling on them as if it was a union location, which is just so confusing. Then here is another example.
Or you've seen what happened where massive percentages of your industry went to other countries like Mexico, like China, like South Korea, like Japan. In other words, your current negotiations don't mean as much as you think. I mean, I watch you out there with the pickets, but I don't think you're picketing for the right thing. But if they endorse me, your leadership, you can tell them I said it, although I have a feeling they may be watching tonight. Because, you know, when Biden came here yesterday, they only had 11 people. I'll bet you we have 10,000 people standing outside. Right? I think we do.
He can't even help himself. You're going, just, again, this is strategic advice for some reason that I'll give to Trump. You're going to dishonestly pretend like you have the interest of these workers. So at least try to act like it. But the whole time he's concerned with the fact that obviously the leader and leaders of the UAW workers, or the UAW union, I should say, don't want to endorse Trump, aren't supportive of Trump, didn't invite him to speak for them because of his record, because of his stances on these important labor issues. And so then he's just annoyed at that fact and annoyed at the leaders of the union wanting them to just endorse him without any reason for that to be their decision. My goodness. And then he says just a big fat lie.
I side with the auto workers of America and with those who want to make America great again, and I always will. And I don't get one thing. I don't get why Ford and GM, why these car makers aren't fighting to make cars that are going to sell, to make cars that are going to be able to go on long distances. They immediately give up. I see it with the oil companies, too. They're promoting windmills, which don't work, by the way, but they don't work. They want windmills all over the place. It's like they're told what to do, and that's what they go against their industry. They're either stupid or they're gutless.
And then before responding to that one, here's more kind of on the green energy bad messaging.
They want to do they want to do it with boats, too. I was with a boating manufacturer in a great state, South Carolina, with a great governor, by the way, Henry McMaster. And we were there 2 days ago, and I asked him that question. I said, he said, yeah, they want us to go all electric. I said, how does that work for a boat? He said, the entire boat would be like one big battery, we'd have no room for anything else. I said, what happens if the boat has an accident, starts sinking? Do you get electrocuted if the boat sinks? The guy said, I've never thought of that, actually, but I think I gave him an idea, actually.
You solved the problem, Trump. So there, it's his typical kind of anti-green energy, anti-electric vehicle stance. And that's what he feels like can substitute for advocacy for workers. So he can say, because of the real threat that's posed to the jobs of workers and the situation for workers in this industry with this transition, which is real. We'll talk about what the better response to it is, though. He feels like instead of actual strong pro-worker, pro-union advocacy, I can just say I'm against green energy and thus I'm here for you. And that was a lot of his speech, was being against the transition to electric vehicles and green energy. Now, it is true when an industry is shifting and there's a huge transition like this, workers can be in limbo and there can be a very real risk to their jobs and their well-being. And so, as Shawn Fain said during a CNN interview that we discussed recently, we can do this transition correctly. We just need the job security that we're demanding. We need the proper assurances from these companies. And so essentially, if we can have pro-worker, pro-union leaders who are assisting, as Biden's currently doing, in allowing us to powerfully demand these things as they're doing in these negotiations during this strike, then we can get the job security necessary to be good as workers as we move in this industry in a different direction. Because obviously that's what we should do. We should figure out how to be on the cutting edge, lead on green energy, and also invest in the proper areas and advocate for workers properly so that the workers are doing fantastic during that transition, instead of what Trump is advocating for, which is just sitting on our buttocks, allowing other companies to be leading on this issue. And then eventually we're going to have to shift. That's just the way the world's going. And we're going to be way behind the ball and even more devastation will happen. And that's even the stance of Shawn Fain, president of UAW. So this substitute for advocacy for workers is not tricking anyone, Donald. Unfortunately, it is tricking lots of people. But then last clip we'll look at.
Competing with the job candidates. They're all running for a job. No, they're all job candidates. They want to be in the, they'll do anything. Secretary of something. They even say VP. I don't know. Does anybody see any VP in the group? I don't think so. No, we're...
So there he's saying the Republican presidential primary debate stage was an audition to be someone in his cabinet, possibly his VP, and he doesn't see anyone who's a star candidate for that position, which is unfortunate for some that I do think are hoping that's where this presidential run will lead. Very, very wild speech in a manufacturing plant that's not union, but trying to win over political points for being pro this moment where the union's demanding better conditions, pay, and benefits, and all around confusing and dishonest.